Okay, so picture this. On one side of the country, you've got a 24-year-old black student in Atlanta casually opening up Claude to draft a razor-sharp cover letter for a new job. On the exact same day, halfway across the country, a 58-year-old woman in rural Iowa reads a frantic news alert about AI replacing customer service workers, and she quietly closes her phone in absolute dread. I mean, these two people live in the exact same country, but as we look at the data from 2026, it is abundantly clear that they don't live in the same technological reality at all. We are looking at a society totally fractured by access, usage, and, frankly, fear.
Welcome to this explainer. I'm putting on my researcher hat today to map out the topography of America's AI perception. We're going to treat this like a full-on investigative documentary, looking way past the surface to uncover the hidden demographic fault lines. You know, the hills, the valleys, and the deep chasms that separate us by who we are, where we live, and how we're navigating this entire artificial intelligence revolution.
Section 1. The Illusion of Equality. Okay, let's dive into this, because to understand the deep divides, we first have to look at the top-level data. At first glance, the nationwide split from 2026 suggests this perfect equilibrium. 49% of the U.S. population reports having used AI chatbots, compared to 51% who haven't. A near-even split. It looks like perfect equality, doesn't it? Half the country is in, half is out. But as a researcher, I gotta tell you, this near-even split, it's a massive statistical illusion. It's masking deep, systemic fragmentation.
Which brings us to the critical question we're going to answer today. If top-level adoption is basically equal, why does the day-to-day reality of AI feel so totally fractured across the country? To answer that, we really need to get under the hood and look at the specific demographics.
Section 2. Age and proximity anxiety. We're going to start with the most obvious fault line in the data: age. This is where high-frequency usage and deep-seated fear just violently collide. Now, unsurprisingly, young Americans are the hyper-adopters here. Adults under 50 sit at a 57% adoption rate for ChatGPT. That is roughly double the rate of adults 50 and older, who are way down at 28%. The older generations are largely insulated from this tech. In fact, about 75% of Americans over 65 have literally never even touched a chatbot. And it's not just a lack of interest, you know. It's a quiet mix of data privacy concerns and some very real fears about what this tech can actually do.
Now, what's really interesting about this next piece of data is the sheer velocity of the generational shift, 29. That's the massive 29-point surge in AI awareness among adults under 30 from just 2022 to 2026. I mean, think about that. This younger group went from about 1/3 awareness to nearly 2/3 in just 4 years. They are completely immersed in it.
But here's the kicker, the paradox of that immersion. Awareness breeds engagement, sure, but that intense engagement is breeding some intense ambivalence. We call this proximity anxiety. The under 30 demographic are the absolute heaviest users, yet they are also the most profoundly cynical. Nearly half of these young users actually predict that AI will ultimately destroy societal stability. It's like the closer you are to the machine, the more clearly you see the damage it can cause.
Section 3. Race and the usage gap.
So, shifting gears to racial demographics, because we are about to uncover some of the most pronounced statistical outliers in the entire 2026 dataset. This fundamentally changes how we view the digital divide. When we examine total adoption, a massive outlier pops right up. Asian American adults are drastically outpacing the rest of the nation at a 70% adoption rate. Black and Hispanic adults are sitting at 49%, and white adults are at 46%. And this isn't just casual use either. Nearly half of all Asian Americans use chatbots on a daily basis, and 60% of employed Asian adults are integrating these tools directly into their daily workplace tasks. They are statistically leading the nation for sure, and they hold a pretty rare net positive outlook on AI's personal impact.
Now let's zoom in specifically on teenagers, because there is a totally fascinating flip in the data here. Black and Hispanic teens are using AI chatbots at roughly 70%, which is significantly higher than white teens at 58%. But pay really close attention to the income brackets here. High-income teens primarily use ChatGPT for schoolwork and productivity. Lower-income teens, however, are twice as likely to use Character.ai, which is a platform entirely focused on emotional connection and companionship. So in the absence of other resources, AI acts as a substitute. The affluent seek productivity, the economically constrained seek connection. AI isn't correcting inequality here, it is literally just reflecting it.
Section 4. The gender utility divide.
Remember that illusion of equality we talked about right at the beginning? Well, those near-even adoption numbers are hiding a massive divide in how these tools are actually utilized. At the headline level, yeah, the historical gender gap has effectively closed. Men are at 50% and women are at 47% for ever having used a chatbot. Women have closed almost the entire adoption gap that existed just 2 years prior. But I have to caution you here. The closer we look at this data, the wider the actual chasm becomes.
And this brilliantly illustrates what's really going on. Once you step past basic ChatGPT into the enterprise tool ecosystem, the specialized tools used for production and professional workflow, men completely dominate. By tracking secondary platforms like Gemini, Copilot, Grok, and Claude, the data shows men using these tools far more regularly and intensively. So women have achieved equal baseline access, absolutely. But the application and high-frequency deployment, that remains sharply skewed.
And that utility gap, it bleeds directly into a severe sentiment split even among the people actually building the tools. Get this, 63% of male AI experts predict AI will have a positive impact on the US. Compare that to only 36% of female experts. As a researcher, I really have to argue that this reflects systemic design biases. The fields building AI heavily skew male. The fears about AI's societal impacts skew heavily female. It begs the question, right? Whose life experiences are actually getting embedded into the design of these systems?
Section 5. Education and Systemic Bias.
Let's tie all this evidence together by looking at how formal education and geographic location basically cement these digital chasms. Now, you might assume that people who don't use AI simply don't know how to use it. And while that's somewhat true for those with lower formal education, but for highly educated Americans who refuse to use AI, they aren't lacking digital literacy at all. Actually, scratch that. They know exactly what it is, and they are actively opting out. 79% of educated non-adopters cite massive data privacy concerns, and 76% cite a fundamental zero-trust stance on the accuracy of the underlying models. They aren't confused by the system. They are actively, intentionally rejecting it. And then, when you map the physical geography of this perception, the divide is just stark. Tech-heavy urban centers like Washington, D.C. see really heavy usage, with over half of urbanites believing AI serves the public good. Meanwhile, out in rural communities, usage drops all the way down to roughly 16%, and they remain deeply skeptical, with under 40% seeing any public good from it at all. The terrain of AI acceptance literally changes depending on your zip code.
So what does this all mean for us? What's the overarching conclusion after analyzing all this 2026 data? Well, the perception gap in America is structurally guaranteed because the creators and the disrupted are two completely different populations. The builders are disproportionately young, male, urban, and high-income, while the disrupted, the people actually absorbing the shocks of this technology day to day, are disproportionately female, older, rural, and lower income. These are not gaps in intelligence, you guys. They are massive gaps in representation.
Because ultimately, we don't just have one single AI problem in this country. We have millions of them, and each one is uniquely shaped by a person's age, race, bank account, and gender. Which leaves us with a pretty critical, looming question to think about. If America is this fractured, who can possibly govern a system that is trusted by almost nobody? Think about that as you navigate your own digital reality today. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember, always keep questioning the data around you.